Madhava Kunjabihari Madhava Kunjabihari Jaya Radha Madhava Kunjabihari Madhava Kunjabihari Gopijana Vallabha Girivardhari Gopijana Vallabha Gopijana Vallabha Girivardhari Jasodhanandana Brajajanarandana Jasodhanandana Brajajanarandana Jamanathira Vanachadi Jamanathira Vanachadi Jaya Radha Madhava Kunjabihari Madhava Kunjabihari Jaya Radha Madhava Kunjabihari Madhava Kunjabihari Gopijana Vallabha Girivardhari Gopijana Vallabha Girivardhari Gopijana Vallabha Girivardhari Gopijana Vallabha Girivardhari Jasodhanandana Brajajanarandana Jasodhanandana Brajajanarandana Jamunatira Vanachadi Jamunatira Vanachadi Jaya Radha Madhava Kunjabihari Madhava Kunjabihari Jaya Radha Madhava Kunjabihari Madhava Kunjabihari Jayom Vishnupad Paramahansa Parivedikacharya Astatarasata Sisi His Divine Grace A.C. Bhaktivedanta Swami Srila Prabhupada Ki Ananta Koti Vaishnavrinda Ki Grantaraj Srimad Bhagavatam Ki Gora Premanandi. There was an unanswered question yesterday that resulted in the following conclusion. What is the relationship that Uddhava had with Krishna? Was it Dasya Rasa or was it Sakya Rasa? Remember that discussion? And the answer is both. Mixed. according to so many references from our acharyas, that does happen sometimes. And in the case of Uddhava, it happened. In the case of Uddhava, his primary rasa is dasya and friendship. There are other examples of other personalities that have some overlap or some mixture, something primary, something secondary, but both in one person. Makes sense, and that's what our acharyas say. So we're going to continue. No, not where we're going to continue. We're going to continue with the song of the Gopīs. Krishna's gone out to herd the cows with the cowherd boys, and they're feeling separation. So to deal with that pain of separation, they are remembering Krishna. And the remembrance of Krishna is by singing songs about Krishna. And just as a little review, we heard our acharyas say that it's not a one-time deal. It's Sukadeva Goswami piecing together sometimes, and then in another circumstance they said, another said. So it's not like a chorus and they're just singing during some stretch of time. Throughout the day they would speak like this, and he selected some of them. And yesterday we heard Jiva Goswami in his Priti Sandarbha describe some very interesting things about details of as the Gopis are singing songs. When the first part is he's entering the forest, and Krishna plays upon his flute to signal to the cows, okay, stay together, guys, or gals, and those that are in the forest, his friends in the forest, here I come, and the Gopis, I'll be back. So it has multiple purposes, and they're appreciating the good fortune of the cowherd boys. So focus went at length a description of Dasya Rasa. And that's where this question came up about Uddhava. Is Uddhava in Dasya Rasa or Sakya Rasa so? This morning we're going to hear something similar. Only it's not by Jiva Goswami, it's by Vishwanath Chakravarti Thakur. Now, chronologically, Jiva Goswami was many generations before Vishwanath Chakravarti Thakur. And it's not that Vishwanath Chakravarti Thakur just cut and pasted whatever Jiva Goswami wrote, but he was a follower of the predecessor Acharya. So we're going to hear again some of, differently expressed, but some of the same points. It's good to hear it again because it was a little intricate. So that's what we'll be doing this morning. Continuing, Jiva Goswami in his Priti Sandarbha it's another manifestation of this topic, because we're at 10:35:4. This section is in pairs of two. The first verse is an introduction to the topic, then 2 and 3 and 4 and 5, etc. They're together. And the first verse of the 2 is Krishna does this. The second verse of the 2, this is the effect that other entities have upon what Krishna does in the first of the 2 verses. And it goes on like that. So the focus here is now text 4, but Jiva Goswami starts with text 25 of this chapter. In Srimad Bhagavatam 10:35-25, it was said that Lord Krishna delighted the people of Vraja and delivered them from their sufferings. This is confirmed by the following words spoken by the goddess-like Gopis of Vraja in Srimad Bhagavatam, Canto 10, Chapter 21. Several chapters earlier, the Gopis said, "Oh, friend, Brindavan is spreading the glory of the earth, having obtained the treasure of the lotus feet of Krishna, the son of Devaki." Note, they're speaking of Krishna as the son of Devaki. The peacocks dance madly when they hear Govinda's flute, and when other creatures see them from the hilltops, they also become stunned. The Gopis also said in Srimad Bhagavatam 10:35-4, that's our verse for this morning, "Oh girls, this son of Nanda, who gives joy to the distressed, bears steady lightning on his chest, and has a smile like a jeweled necklace." Now please hear something wonderful. When he vibrates his flute, Braja's bulls, deer, and cows, standing in groups at a great distance, are all captivated by the sound, and they stop chewing the food in their mouths and cock their ears. Stunned, they appear as if asleep or like figures in a painting, unquote. So now comes the devotional dasya rasa, or servitorship, will be considered. Now I'm not going to define all the terms. In this rasa, the alambana, does somebody remember from yesterday the meaning? Alambana, yeah?
Pralamba means separation, so alamba is the opposite, meeting.
Yes, meeting in loving union. So when lover and beloved come together, or friend and friend come together, that meeting, coming together, is a lambana. And so there's the cowherd boys and there's Krishna, and that's when they come together, it's a lambana. In this rasa, dasya rasa, the alambana is Lord Krishna. He's like the pillar, the object of service for the servitors. Lord Krishna in his feature as a master, dasya, servant. The object of service is Lord Krishna, and the servitors are the glorious servants who directly participate in Lord Krishna's pastimes. As in the previous rasa, so he's going through sequentially in Priti Sandarbha describing the 5 primary rasas. So the previous rasa to dasya is Shanta. As in the previous rasa, in this rasa, Krishna manifests 2 kinds of forms. 1, the form of the opulent supreme controller, Parameshvara Akara, the opulent supreme controller. Now, he's the same person, but some see him this way, some see him. 2, as a glorious human-like form, Nara Akara. Some servants serve the first of these forms, and other servants serve the other. Thus, there are 2 kinds of servants. Again, there are 3 kinds of servants. 1, we heard this yesterday, that Sanskrit is slightly different. Servants who serve the Lord's body, Anga Sevaka. 2, servants who act as the Lord's associates, Parshada, and that term is used over and over. Parshada. That's, we're going to hear it again, but Uddhava is in that category. He's a Parshada. They act as the Lord's associates. And 3, servants of the Lord. Servants the Lord sends on specific missions. Preshya. So there's 3. Anga Sevaka, Parshada, that's associates. Servants the Lord sends on specific missions. Preshya. The Anga Sevaka servants anoint the Lord's body with fragrant ointments, offer him betel nuts and fragrant scents, dress the Lord in exquisite garments, and serve him in many other ways. So that's the first of the 3. The Parshada servants, associates, become the Lord's advisor. Uddhava did that. Chariot driver, Dharaka, did that. A general in his army, a judge in his judicial system. Now we're over to Dwarka. An administrator of parts of his kingdom. And they also assume many other similar duties. With their great learning and expertise, they delight the Lord's royal enclave, or conclave. Because of his exalted position, the Lord's priest is counted among his gurus. Thus, the Lord's priest is among his associates, Parshada. That's second. So, Anga Sevaka, Parshada, now here's the third. The Preshyas include the Lord's chariot driver, note that's already spoken of, foot soldiers, artisans, and others. As were the previously mentioned servants, these servants are all very dear to the Lord. Paragraph. Sri Uddhava, Dharaka, and others who very closely serve the Lord are the most dear of the Lord's servitors. Lord Krishna said to Uddhava in Srimad Bhagavatam, this is Uddhava Gita 11:11:49, O Uddhava, you are my servant, well-wisher, and friend. So there it is. He's both. Paragraph. In this rasa, the Udipanas, anybody remember what Udipana means? That which stimulates ecstatic love. Udipanas. So now we're speaking of the stimulants of ecstatic love for those who are dasya rasa, his servants. In this rasa, the Udipanas are the same as were previously described, but it strikes the heart differently. For the Anga Sevaka, servants, the Lord's qualities, those that serve his limbs, his body, the Lord's qualities include his handsomeness, delicateness, and other qualities. The Lord's activities include his eating, sleeping, and other similar activities. And the Lord's paraphernalia include the articles used to serve the Lord and the remnants of what has been enjoyed by the Lord. This is like analysis of rasa. It's Rupa Goswami's teaching, and it's being applied here. Paragraph. For the Parshada, that's the assistants. For the Parshada servants, the Lord's qualities like his status as the Supreme Master and many other qualities. For the Preshya servants, the Lord's qualities include his power, glory, and other qualities. Here the Anubhavas, who remembers what Anubhava means? Huh? Anubhava specifically is when one has an experience of ecstasy, it's manifest externally in certain transformations of the body or expressions of the body, like crepulations, tears, stunned, etc. Anubhavas. Here the anubhavas are primarily as were described before. Paragraph. Directly associating with the Lord, the servants perform their respective duties. If trembling, becoming stunned, or other ecstatic symptoms, those are anubhavas, right, become manifest in them when they perform their duties of serving the Lord, the servants lament. That's not like what we do. Oh, I'm trembling. Oh, I'm feeling ecstatic. Stop. The Lord's servants are very extraordinary. For them, ecstatic symptoms are both common and powerful. Even when the Lord is not present, dasya rasa is very powerful and exalted. When the Lord is not present, his servants continue to perform their duties of serving him. And then some more terminologies. Here, the sanchari bhavas are as previously were described. The sthayi bhava, that's the steady ecstasy, is service with devotion. Paragraph. For Kṛṣṇa and others like him, knowledge of the Lord's power and opulence is prominent. So the Aishvarya aspect of Krishna is prominent for Kṛṣṇa and others like him. For Uddhava and others like Uddhava, knowledge of the Lord's sweetness is prominent. The Lord's servants in Braja know only the Lord's sweetness and nothing else. Their devotion is very great. They worship Lord Krishna because he is Braja's prince, because he has a host of transcendental qualities, and because he is supremely glorious. Paragraph. About Kṛṣṇa, it is said in Bhagavatam 10:38, 28, that's 3 chapters later. Kṛṣṇa is coming to take Krishna to Mathura. Kṛṣṇa then saw Krishna and Balaram in the village of Braja going to milk the cows. Krishna wore yellow garments, Balaram blue, and their eyes resembled autumnal lotuses. One of those 2 mighty armed youths, the shelters of the goddess of fortune, had a dark blue complexion, and the other's complexion was white. With their fine-featured faces, they were the most beautiful of all persons. As they walked with the gait of young elephants, glancing about with compassionate smiles, those 2 exalted personalities beautified the cow pasture with the impressions of their feet, which bore the marks of flag, lightning bolt, elephant goad, and lotus. The 2 lords, whose pastimes are most magnanimous and attractive, were ornamented with jeweled necklaces and flower garlands, anointed with auspicious fragrant substances, freshly bathed, and dressed in spotless, now this translation says raiment, that's garments. They were the primeval supreme personalities, the masters and original causes of the universes, plural, who had for the welfare of the earth now descended in their distinct forms of Keshava and Balaram. Oh, King Parikshit, they resembled 2 gold-bedecked mountains, one of emerald, the other of silver. As with their effulgence they dispelled the sky's darkness in all directions. Apparently it's early in the morning. No, Kṛṣṇa reached there in the evening. Paragraph. In this part of the Lord's pastimes, Kṛṣṇa saw the Lord's sweetness. Later, Kṛṣṇa saw the Lord's power and opulence manifest in a lake of the Yamuna. For Kṛṣṇa Seeing the Lord's wonderful power and opulence was more important than seeing his sweetness. For Sri Uddhava, Lord Krishna's sweetness was more important. This is clearly seen in the words Uddhava spoke, glorifying the good fortune of the Gokula's residents. When the Lord was absent, Uddhava meditated on the sweetness of Lord Krishna's human-like pastimes. Thus, he felt the pangs of separation from the Lord. That's Canto 3, when when Uddhava meets Uddhava, Canto 3, Chapter 2. Oh, how's Krishna? So Uddhava's focus is on the sweetness, not the majesty. Translation is 3:2:16. When I think of Lord Krishna, how he was born in the prison house of Vasudeva, the prison house of Kamsa, although he is unborn. Oh, something's wrong with this translation. How he was born in the prison house, son of Vasudeva, although he is unborn. How he went away from his father's protection to Braja and lived there incognito out of fear of the enemy. And how, although unlimitedly powerful, he fled from Mathura in fear. All these bewildering incidents give me distress. So when he's reunited with Vasudeva and Devaki, he offers apology. He's not in the mood of his all-powerful Supreme. He's in the mood of, I was afraid. Oh, I didn't come because I was afraid of Kamsa. I mean, he just finished Kamsa, etc., and Kuvalyapida and the whole thing. But he's before his mother and father saying, I was afraid of Kamsa. And when Uddhava hears that, it gives him great pain. So now we're going to go to Brihat Bhagavatamrita by Sanatana Goswami, where he is describing Krishna's flute playing entering the forest. It's related to this chapter 35, verses 4 and 5. Sanatana Goswami writes, when Krishna vibrates his flute, Vraja's bulls, deer, and cows, standing in groups at a great distance, are all captivated by the sound. And they stop chewing the food in their mouths and cock their ears, stunned. They appear as if asleep or like figures in a painting. Commentary. This is verse number 5, 1035.5, which describes the rare good fortune shared by the cows and the bulls and the other animals that were with them. Quote, dear friends, please now hear something wonderful. And this is really wonderful. When the bulls, deer, and cows hear Krishna's flute, they feel the urge to approach him. They all come from far away and stand near him, fully enchanted. They forget about the grass in their mouths, and it either stays there unchewed or else it falls from their mouths to the ground. Their ears standing upright, the animals remain still, as if asleep, or as if not living beings, but painted images. Thus these animals, bewildered by prema, lose their powers of thought and activity. Or, explaining what happens in another way, at first the cows hear Krishna's flute from a distance, as if a distant murmur, without embellishments or even a discernible melody. But simply that faint sound is enough to capture their hearts and completely agitate them. After a short time, when the cows, bulls, and deer hear the song of Krishna's flute more clearly, they feel fear that death might intervene and separate them from Krishna. So to prevent themselves from hearing any more, check it out, they lift their front legs and forcibly cover the holes of their ears. When that fails to stop the sound, they come closer to Krishna, holding blades of grass in their mouths as a sign of humble entreaty. And when that fails to stop Krishna from playing, they all become stunned. Paragraph. The word chitram in this verse is in the singular form because as these animals fell into a stupor, they came together in a densely packed group, like figures posed together in a painting. And now we're going on to the next pair, 6 and 7. And we'll just begin. Here's the translation. My dear Gopi, sometimes Mukunda imitates the appearance of a wrestler by decorating himself with leaves, peacock feathers, and colored minerals. Then, in the company of Balaram and the cowherd boys, he plays his flute to call the cows. At that time, the rivers stop flowing. Their water, stunned by the ecstasy they feel, as they eagerly wait for the wind to bring them the dust of his lotus feet. But, like us, the rivers are not very pious, and thus they merely wait with their arms trembling out of love. I mean, it's such beautiful poetry. Purport. The Gopis state here that the sound of Krishna's flute causes even inanimate objects like rivers to become conscious and then stunned in ecstasy. Just as the Gopis could not always be in Krishna's physical association, the rivers could not come to the Lord's lotus feet. Although they desired the Lord, their movement was checked by ecstasy, and their arms, quote unquote, or their waves, trembled with love of Godhead. And Vishwanath Chakravarti Thakur writes, quote, what to speak of the living creatures, even the unconscious entities become stunned on hearing the flute, unquote. One other Gopi spoke, quote, when Mukunda, decorated with peacock feathers or peacock feathers and flowers, imitating the appearance of wrestlers or mocking them with his own brilliance, along with Balaram and the cowherd boys, called the cows by name, oh, Kalindi, Gange, Saraswati. Because when he played upon his flute, the names of the cows would come out. Pretty different flute. All such rivers as Yamuna and Saraswati and other rivers, though unconscious, take on consciousness and began to think, oh, what good fortune we have. Krishna is calling us. In order to bathe in our waters with strong currents, we will break the banks and flow toward him. Unquote. Though desiring in this way, because of being stunned with bliss, the stoppage of natural movement, currents became immobile. Paragraph. Another meaning of Bhagna Gati is as follows. The river's progress in this life was stopped because they had not attained the happiness of contacting Krishna's body, or because they became the laughingstock of other rivers. And next life's goal was destroyed because of transgressing the vows of chastity to their husbands. What misfortune for these rivers. So who are the husbands as they see the ocean? They became so attracted to Krishna, the female rivers were for breaking their chastity to their husbands, the sea. But they have a little good fortune. Desiring the dust from Krishna's lotus feet carried to them by favorable breezes, they attain it. But even though attaining it, they cannot be satisfied and desire more, like us Gopīs, who sometimes get Krishna's association and sometimes are deprived of it. The rivers do not have bad fortune, but only a little good fortune. Abahu punya. Paragraph. The waves, or their arms, of the river tremble because of prema. Our arms also tremble with prema, though the waters become solid, stimita apa, because of being stunned. Again they liquefy. Our vision is clouded by the water of tears, and thus we become motionless. Also, we, because of being stopped by our mothers and fathers from meeting Krishna, have lost our goal of life. And because of the ridicule of others and the transgression of the rules of chastity, we have lost chances in future life also. Like the rivers, we desire the dust from his lotus feet. Really far out. Jiva Goswami, and we'll end here. Having entered the forest decorated with forest ornaments befitting a costumed person, he goes to rivers and lakes to give water to the cows, and the rivers become bewildered with the appearance of special bhavas because of the sound of his flute when he calls the cows. It's emphasized. He's calling the cows, and they're just hearing Krishna calling the cows, and all these things happen. He who is skillful at playing his flute, Mukunda, calls the cows in a special way, with affection, pronouncing each of their names. Sa, Bala, indicates that Balaram is in a secondary role. In order to increase the sound, he utilizes the sound of flutes of Balaram and others. By this sound, the rivers manifest emotions, since they are also devoted to Krishna. The combined sound of the flutes is used since the cows are far off, and the cows are many. Because the sound carries far, the rivers also hear, "Oh, friends, you must believe that the rivers are like us." Or, by mentioning friends, they indicate kinship and similarity to the rivers. Barhina refers to peacock feathers, just like in our Govinda prayers. Barhina. He was decorated with peacock feathers, bunches of flowers, and tender leaves. In the sweetest voice, he called out to the cows, "O Ganga, Yamuna, Saraswati." The rivers near Mathura, like Manasa Ganga, Yamuna, and Saraswati, thinking they are unqualified to attain Krishna in another way, desire only a speck of dust from his feet. The word spriha yati indicates extreme desire. Because of that desire, the rivers become blocked because the flow stops. The word sarit means to flow constantly. Since the husband of the rivers is the ocean, by stopping their flow, the rivers indicate non-surrender to their husband and show disregard for piety in this world and the next. Paragraph. In not attaining him, the rivers are unfortunate like us, having accrued scant piety, since the rivers, like us, have rare opportunities of his association. Though he performs pastimes there, because they are innumerable of many similar and different types, like our groups. Paragraph. First, so here's the similar and different. First, with the desire for that dust, they seem to spread their trembling arms in prema with their waves. Then, without waves, the water stops moving. The Gopis' eyes are always moist, but in his absence, their moistness stops. Stimitapaha. Or, since water is a limb of the rivers, in terms of the Gopis, stimitapaha means the limbs have become stunned. Paragraph. Our acharyas, they're having a nice time relishing the words of the Gopis. In sequence, first the rivers hear the sound of the flute, then the flow stops. Then only the waves move. Then the waves also stop. Paragraph. In terms of the Gopis, first they hear the sound of the flute, then they stop moving. Then their arms trembling with desire to embrace him, and then they only become stunned in sorrow on not attaining him. Then they desire only a little dust, they only desire that without attaining him. Paragraph. It depends on the favorableness of the wind, which is readily available, but we, like the rivers, are without sufficient pious acts. If this happens to even unconscious entities like the rivers, what fault do we have? I'll read Sanatana Goswami, or the 8:13. I'll read Sanatana Goswami tomorrow. It just continues this ecstatic theme. In the world today, environmentalists and people like that are wanting to have people respect nature instead of exploiting nature. And all these other causes and things, without going into it too much. We discussed a little bit yesterday, the social activism and this activism and that activism, and protect the whales and protect the porpoises, and it's the exploitative tendency is immediately taken care of. Just become a gopi, become a lover of Krishna, because it's all Krishna's property. It's taken care of. You don't need a separate something. Or say it the other way around. You take care of this exhibition of exploitation, and the mode of nature is still going to be there. It's going to come out some other way. You haven't solved the problem. What's the problem? What's the root problem? In the language of our scriptures, it's ignorance. And ignorance starts with ignorance of Krishna, ignoring Krishna. And you take care of that ignorance, and you've solved all the other baby ignorances, because that's the mama source, turning away from Krishna. And you don't address that, and you're going to have another series of problems. It's no solution. Or conversely, you take care of that one problem, and there's the solution. They're seeing in this very wonderful way their love for Krishna is being manifest by everything. The rocks, the trees, the water, the clouds, everything is in relation to Krishna because of their affinity, their attachment for Krishna. So that's super elevated Brijbasi Gopis. But the principle, even way back down to our level, the principle is the same. just this morning I was listening to Prabhupada speak on chapter 4, Bhagavad Gita, Brahmarpanam, Brahmahavir, Brahmagnau, Brahmanahutam. It's a very important verse that says how one can attain transcendence, or the platform of Brahman, and it's by sacrifice. And in the course of that description, one of the things Prabhupada was speaking about was Buddha and Chankazi. So in the case of Buddha, people were taking the passage from the Vedas that apparently said cow sacrifice and were slaughtering cows, or in the name of Dharma, killing cows. And it goes. It's not a new thing. It went on during Christ's time, that in the temples, in the Jewish temples, they were killing cows. Because there's an understanding they have of how it's okay, and without going into details. So he was objecting, and they didn't like he was objecting, and they took it out in a very mean way. But that was one of the issues. But today, how many Christians understand that? And how many truly understand thou shalt not kill? So what Buddha did, this is Prabhupada's explanation, he did the necessary. Now, because there's other ways than what he did. But in the name of Dharma, animals were being killed, not just cows, animals were being killed. So I reject the Vedas and stop killing. Because that's a principle. And people were misusing the scripture, and so forget the scripture. Here's the principle. And there was a purpose behind that, and behind, et cetera, et cetera. So people ask questions like this from time to time. So, there was an event some years ago in Washington, D.C., where Dalai Lama was invited as the principal person. It was like this political thing about getting the land that was inhabited by the Dalai Lama and his people, that China forcibly came in and took over, to free that land again and give it back to Dalai Lama. You're familiar, right? The history? No? You don't know the history? Going back in time, there's a movie made about the thing. And there was a period of time where the Dalai Lama is a title. It's like, Pope. So there's somebody that occupies that post. And the current Dalai Lama is, when he was a young boy, there was a conspiracy by the Chinese government to take over that tract of land. And to this day, Dalai Lama, the current, one who was a little boy at that time, he's on their bad list. The Chinese government, I can speak about this. I guess it's being recorded, but if anybody has an affinity, ISKCON or anybody has affinity for Dalai Lama, you're dangerous. He is considered dangerous. And it all has to do with occupying a tract of land that was previously in the control of the Dalai Lama people, the Buddhists in their headquarters. I forget what the place is called. Does anybody know the place? The name of the place? Huh? Well, it's a certain part of Tibet. Maybe it is Tibet. Maybe it's just, say, Tibet. That place that they occupied. Mountainous, who cares about it? It's happening now in another area, tract of land that Prabhupada writes in the Bhagavatam, uninhabitable, and conflict between two nations over uninhabitable land. But it's like, so there was a plot and intrigue and so forth and so on, and the the Chinese military took over and pushed him out. And so there was this rally at the White House, and he was the speaker. So he was flown in, and he was put in a hotel, and he asked for, I forget what it's called, but it's baby calves that are killed, and it's given a certain name when you serve it as a meal. Huh? Veal. And people, when they heard he wanted veal, they were like, "What? You're a Buddhist. You're Dalai Lama. What's going on?" And he said, "It's okay." It was a big thing in the news. So that's Dalai Lama, what to speak of everybody else. Or Prabhupada speaking to the Cardinal Daniel Yu, and the whole thing about thou shalt not kill, and it's not killing. Huh? So anyway, religious principle is lost because there's this, the tongue is so powerful, even in the name of Buddhism and Catholicism and Christianity of other versions. It's okay, it's quite okay. How strong is the human domination over nature and weaker life forms? Jivo jiva shajivanam, Prabhupada explained it. Now you have to curb that tendency. Then how do you curb the tendency? By pleasing Krishna. And if you don't take the tendency to please Krishna, then you're going to have exploitation. So you say it the other way. If you come to that position, that one thing, the root, is ignoring Krishna turns to remembering Krishna. All those causes are taken care of. Now, we're not there yet, because we're still in the cultivation stage, but the principle, as it matures, as we in our lives continue to go toward the position of pleasing Krishna, that's everything. That's Brindavan. Pleasing Krishna is everything. As we go there, it takes care of all these causes. And, animal rights, SPCA. In Naperville, to go to the temple, right on the corners is SPCA for Naperville, Society for Prevention of Cruelty to Animals. Because animal cruelty is a big thing. I mean, it's easy to hit the button, and there's like a million different forms of it. There's a current thing going on in China, I read, that to stop the slaughter of cats and dogs for food. Because the coronavirus thing is causing that. So the kind of animal rights people are going, yay, finally. See how long it lasts. Without uprooting the origin, you can make a law and people are going to break the law because the tongue is too strong. Or like in American history, prohibition. But people want alcohol. So it just became a business, a crime business, right here in Chicago, Al Capone. Without going into so the root problem has to be addressed. And otherwise, this is like, in a soapbox here, just saying, social activism is a big thing in the world. Systemic racism, and stop it, and etc., etc., etc. It's a wave. But without the root problem being addressed, it's just going to shift to something else and something else. It's going to be another exploitation thing of some other, passion, ignorance mode. If you don't change the mode, it's not just make a rule or something. Krishna consciousness is the solution. And it's not saying, it's not a sectarian message that Krishna consciousness is the solution. It's the consciousness of the satisfaction of God is meant for us. I'll just say one other thing and just see if there's some discussion, because it's just a nice section. Why go into all this ugly stuff? In New York, there's a St. Francis Day at a church. It's kind of this non-denominational church. I forget the name of the church. Celebrated place, beautiful architecture, lots of followers. So they have St. Francis Day. And St. Francis, one of the things that St. Francis was known for was being kind to all species of life. So they have St. Francis Day. And they bring all... I wasn't there, but Danush has told me. They have this glass case with a giant tarantula inside. And put the tarantula in a glass case on a pillow and carry the tarantula to honor St. Francis, respecting all forms of life. So they asked the Hare Krishna people to cater for it, because they didn't feel right that they're going to honor St. Francis and then have the other kind of food. And that's going up in the mode of goodness. But gosh. So what's the solution? What's the problem? And you have to address the root. So what we're doing, one of the things that's said is these topics, when they're heard, they benefit beyond the people in the room. It's not just the online people. It's a sound vibration that is beneficial for the whole world. Now, how do you measure that? But it's just the faith that the scripture says and our acharyas explain. So it's the best thing we can do. Now, in addition to receiving, then broadcasting that sound vibration in ways that are appropriate and people don't trample on the message and make big offense. But that's our response to Tamagun Rajagun. It's Vyasadev's response, compile the Vedas, and specifically then Srimad Bhagavatam, and receive it and propagate it. That's Sankirtan movement of Caitanya Mahaprabhu. That's our response. It's the Kali Yuga Dharma, Sankirtan, receive and propagate. Now, propagate is a word that people don't like. Some people don't like. It's, you're proselytizing. You're pushing your view on other people, and you shouldn't do that. That's a sentiment. So we have to be careful and not hurt people's sentiment. At the same time, we have to propagate. We have to disseminate that sound vibration. It can be done in so many different ways. That's a spirit of a follower of Lord Chaitanya. And when we become a follower of Lord Chaitanya, the good news is we get Lord Chaitanya's mercy in addition to whatever else we do. We need mercy. We need mercy. We need Lord Chaitanya's mercy, who can lift us up, but we want to be recipients of his mercy. So we extend ourselves in various ways to give mercy. That's a follower of Lord Chaitanya. We receive and we give what we've received to our capacity, and do it in collaboration with others according to our nature and so forth. Okay. We'll continue with Sanatan Goswami tomorrow morning. Krishna's entering the forest, playing on his flute. Any discussion?
Krishna Maharaj.
I'm listening.
You mentioned we have to give it to share this with other people.
Is it on? Is
Yeah,
the
it's on.
okay? Speak a little louder or turn the volume up or both.
How to do it to others, whatever we do here, we do it our own people, reading or hearing. So how to extend to others, people in the world other than Indians?
Well, Indians are nice too, but there's everybody, and everybody is everybody. So it takes a particular strategy that is recognizing sensibilities and so forth, and customs and culture and language and so forth, and considering that this audience, that audience, another audience, customizing outreach to those groups of people. And so the list, you can go down and make some lists of things. Everybody likes prasadam. So there's like a universal prasadam distribution. And that's a strategy. And people like yoga and meditation these days. So that's a strategy. And within that chamber of yoga and meditation, the introduction of topics related to Krishna, like karma and reincarnation and things like that, and then what's behind that and what's behind that. So depends on audiences. I just got a letter yesterday from the couple that are overseeing the UT Austin program, and they've been doing, prasadam distribution and yoga, primarily those two tools, and now there's a group that, with the suggestion, they're like really enthusiastic. Let's do a study of Bhagavad Gita in our group. So that's a strategy. It's Western people, primarily. And then the list can go on. Seminars on meditation, without making a long list. Recognizing the needs, interests, and concerns of an audience, and then customizing something for those needs, interests, and concerns. And it's not like we conceal Krishna, but we don't, keep Krishna in a box either. Something that's palatable according to sensibility. And then another is like attracts like. For example, when Bhakti Tirtha Swami was involved in ISKCON, so many African American people came forward because like attracts like. So Russian people really like. So Hemangi he was going to come, but pandemic hit, and so Bhakti began Maharaj. Fantastic. So to bring the Russian community, etc., Spanish community, etc., etc. So that's. But in order to get those persons, then you need persons that can come forward. It's like what Prabhupada did when visiting Moscow. There was two young men, but one was particularly inspired and a leader, and he started the whole revolution, spiritual revolution in Russia, etc. So like attracts like principle. if the seed of desire is there, that is, this is what Lord Chaitanya wanted, that we serve that which Lord Chaitanya wanted, Krishna will give the intelligence. So what's lacking is not possible strategies. What's lacking is that seed of desire. And then a little spark, and you fan it, and it grows. That's how it happens. Okay. Anything else?
Hare Krishna Maharaj, just a comment or maybe a little more if you could share. You mentioned like the tendency to curb to have the dominance can be curbed only when we please Krishna. And in our stage where we're not yet there, that everything we do is to please Krishna, so definitely there's disturbances.
Yeah.
So
yes.
My understanding from what you mentioned, like just connecting the dots, it's just a comment that we beg for the mercy, and so that Lord Chaitanya gives the mood that we remain as servants, then we don't do the
and
dominance.
associate with those that have that mood. You stand near a fire, you get warm. Associate with those that have that mood. They have the mood of pleasing Lord Chaitanya. Let me be connected with those people.
As long as I remember that I'm servant, then dominance doesn't come.
Yeah. It's great. So there's rule of law and there's rule of love. And rule of love is stronger. But we start with rule of law. We follow the regulations. The 4 regular principles. But then Prabhupada's explanation is, how do these young people follow the regulations? It's bhakti. Just making law doesn't mean people are going to follow the law. That's evident. They'll find some way to, work around the law, or just blatantly violate the law. Scoff law, it's called. There's a name for it.
Thank you so much, Maharaj.
Okay.
The rule of law and rule of law was The rule of law and rule of law was powerful.
Yeah.
Thank you.
In China, they have this phrase. In China, this is a government of law. It's like known. And it's because it's repeated and repeated and repeated and repeated and repeated. Anything else? Amara, anything? Of course. Are you on? Okay.
From the class, this explanation of rivers, rocks, and everything is given, they are how they are attracted to Krishna. So I was thinking that they were in the rasa of neutrality.
Yes.
But still they are manifesting madhurya. So
not madhurya. Well, sweetness. They're attracted. Krishna's flute is really powerful. That's the main point. Mm-hmm. So although they're in this mood of neutrality, they become influenced by Krishna's flute because it's very powerful. And it's a measure of how powerful.
Oh.
That even those in neutrality are becoming influenced.
And just one more clarification, Maharaj, as you mentioned that those people are they are interested in and that is okay for them. They are interested in eating all this food stuff. And I was thinking that most of the people probably know the principles. They know the principles, broadly speaking. But what is that factor that just carries them away from that?
The senses carry away the mind, even of a man of discretion.
So when they are doing it in the name of religion, don't they know that there will be repercussions?
No. I mean, you talk to people, and the answer is no. Many people. Some people will say, yeah, but many people, it's no. It's like, that's the norm. I don't want to dwell on it. They have their sensibilities, and I just described my experience of many people's sensibilities. There's nothing wrong with it. It's the norm.
So is it the modes that is...
What's that?
Is it the modes that is affecting them, and that's how they are... Like,
well, the modes are moved by their choices. I want to enjoy. So then that's what's driving it. Then the modes just customize the I want to enjoy.
So that becomes so strong that everything gets covered like that.
Prabhupada puts it just 2 words: sense gratification. But there's a whole. Take the machine, and there's a whole machine.
Yes.
A separate enjoyment, and that's what brought us here. It's what keeps us here. The modes are just customizing it, and we're moved by the modes, and we see things through the modes, and we live by the modes. We're caught. We're conditioned. In prison. By our own choice.
Just a little more clarification, Maharaj. So when we approach such people, I'm also influenced by modes, definitely. But when we go for preaching or approach such people, then what is our hope that Krishna's mercy will influence them or something?
Well, you have a toolkit, and you choose the appropriate tools based upon the person and the situation.
As you mentioned, just this.
Yeah, there's so many.
Mm-hmm. Okay. Yeah.
Depends on the person.
Right.
What approach. And don't be judgmental, because that's going to go nowhere. Then you're part of the problem, not part of the solution. Okay. Anyone else in the room? Otherwise, we'll go to the online. You have online? Can we pass the microphone up? 844.
This question from Satyavrata Prabhu. If somebody takes a step moment by moment to please Guru and Krishna, can we say he is moving towards perfection?
Yes.
What is the difference between perfection and liberation?
Well, liberation is neutrality, and perfection is beyond neutrality.
Okay. A question from Shri Radhika Mataji. It was mentioned that even inanimate entities become stunned by Krishna's influence. Are there inanimate objects in Brindavan? I thought everything is animate and personified. What are some examples of inanimate objects in Brindavan?
She can ask Amara. She understands it. She's laughing. They're in sthayi bhava, or neutrality. They're conscious, but the mood is neutrality. And so that's examples. The rocks, that but they, in the presence of Krishna, they become moved beyond. They experience ecstasy because of the power of Krishna and Krishna's form and Krishna's flute and things in relation to Krishna. Okay.
Question from Visalakshi Prabhu. What is the root cause behind the problems in the material world?
Ignorance.
What is my duty towards such problems while trying to become the servant of Sri Guru? And
Overcome
Krishna?
ignorance. Start there.
How do we cultivate a desire to preach, especially to those who don't feel inclined?
Understand that it's the will of Lord Chaitanya, and associate with those that have understood that's Lord Chaitanya's will. Those two things. and ask for a lot of mercy so that you can understand how to.
I think it's Prakash Narayan Govindan. Hearing this 35th chapter, my desire to visit Brindavan is getting more and more.
Great. Me too.
I hope I get to go sometime, even though this year is cancelled.
Yeah,
is
it's
there
cancelled.
a special prayer given to us by our acharyas that might help me to ask Krishna to give me a chance to go? Is there anything one can do to get to go in this lifetime?
Well, I imagine it'll happen in this lifetime. Most likely. As long as you do your social distancing and wear your mask and all that stuff. And they come up with some, whatever, the remedy. So, how long that's going to happen, it's in Krishna's hands, but it's not just you. There's so many sinful personalities that are receiving the fruits of all of their misdeeds, or some of the fruits of their misdeeds. So I would say your desire to visit Brindavan is there some you give thought to a special prayer, but be sure to include the other living entities besides yourself, because that's a prayer that Krishna will hear. Okay, and we're done. Srila Prabhupada ki Jai.